Well, good afternoon again. It's great to be speaking to you today on another Thursday Thoughts. Just to say, my name is Simon. I'm one of the leaders and elders at Ascot Life Church, and we wanted to just make this series of videos to help those of us who might be using this time to explore Christianity, explore our beliefs about God and the universe, and maybe look into Christianity in particular, but who also have certain reservations about Christianity, who maybe have certain questions or objections to the Christian faith, which are kind of hang-ups for us. And the question I want us to look at today is kind of one of those hang-ups, one of those reasons we might be hesitant to look into Christianity further, which is the question of what religion does to us. I think we are, for possibly good reasons, in our world today a bit skeptical about how religion changes people. We're worried that if we become religious, we will become worse people, because we look around history and even our world today and see that actually religion seems to be behind a lot of the great atrocities in our world. Maybe you might look back in history and look at various wars that have been fought and see that many of them were fought in the name of religions. And some of them even in the name of the Christian faith, many of them perhaps. Or maybe it's not that you look at history and see the kind of destructive role that religion can play, but it's that you look at the world today. Many of us were shocked quite recently to see the President of the United States standing outside a church holding a Bible in his hands when only moments before this he had ordered the kind of violent dispersal of a group of people who were peacefully protesting there. We see pictures like that. We read stories of what happened in the past, motivated by religion, and we think, I don't want to go near that. If I become religious, if I become a Christian, then I'm going to have to become a bigot. I'm going to have to become inconsiderate, prejudiced of other people. I think one of the reasons we are hesitant to get too close to religion is because we're worried the effect it will have on us. And so this is a really important question I think we have to answer today is what is the effect of religion on us? Does it make us bad people? And I think the first thing I have to say in response to this question is to admit that actually, yes, a lot of the great evils that have been done and are being done in our world today are committed in the name of religion. There's terror attacks that are committed in the name of Islam. There is persecution, particularly of Muslims and Christians in Southeast Asia, which is committed in the name of Buddhism and Hinduism. And of course, even in my own faith, there have been wars and crusades fought in the name of Jesus, in the name of Christianity. But here's a first kind of comment I need to make on that, which is that this sort of violence and horror is not the sole domain of religion. I think we can sometimes get the impression from certain people that religion itself is the root of all evil. That if you took religion out of the world, you'd also take out violence and division. That's what John Lennon says in his song, doesn't he? He says, imagine that there's no religion. Just imagine that and imagine how the world would automatically become peaceful. We think that religion is the root of all problems, but a pastor in London, a guy called Phil Moore, makes what I think is a telling response to this. And he says, we don't have to imagine a world without religion because we've lived in one. There have been societies throughout history and even today which have pushed religion out, or at least they've sidelined it, and yet still great atrocities happen in those nations. You could look at communist China, for example. A country that under the Mao regime pushed religion right to the sidelines, tried to outlaw it as much as possible, or maybe even just kept it in a kind of dulled form, and yet still in that country there were great atrocities committed. There were millions of people who starved because of government bad advice. There were millions of people thrown in prison, millions of people persecuted because they didn't subscribe to a communist regime. And of course that's in the past, but we still have countries today which push religion out and is not in a state of peace. I mean, we could think about North Korea, couldn't we? A country that has eschewed religion in all its forms, and yet I don't think they're living in bliss, at least not 99% of the people in that country. And so clearly, religion itself is not the sole source behind our world's evils. In fact, there seems to be a deeper common denominator here, which is not religion, but is humans. I mean, maybe the source of our problems is not a religion or philosophy at all, it's just us. And the tragic truth is that we will use any means, any excuse, any philosophy or religion, any good thing, we will use that to twist it to our own evil means. That's the first thing we have to see, is that maybe the problems in our world are not caused so much by a religion or religion in general, but just by us, and we will use religion to commit those things. But here's the second point I need to make, and this one kind of follows on from this first one, and it's that just because a crime or an evil is committed in the name of a religion doesn't necessarily implicate that religion. I mean, we can all agree, I think, that if I ran out onto my street now and punched someone in the name of my wife, I said, I'm punching you because my wife told me to, then that doesn't necessarily make Liz guilty. Because it could be that she never told me to do that, and I'm just doing it because I've maybe misunderstood her words, or maybe I'm just making it up, using her as an excuse to go and commit this act of violence. And what we have to do there is go back and ask Liz and see if she has sanctioned this violence, or whether I'm contradicting her in this. And we have to do the same thing with religion, don't we? It may be that people commit all kinds of violence in the name of religion, but we have to ask, does that violence flow naturally from this particular religion or worldview, or does it rather contradict that religion? Now, of course, in this short video, I can't go through each of the world's religions and look at its stance on violence and its relationship between, its beliefs and the violence committed in its name. Can't do that with every religion. I can only really focus in this video on the one I know best, on Christianity. But here's the thing, when you look at Christianity, I think you see a view of the world that completely discourages violence, hatred, bigotry, prejudice, all evil in every form. I think in every way Christianity discourages all these things. And it does so not just through various sayings in the Bible, or through various things Jesus said. I mean, of course, Jesus did say things which discouraged violence. He said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." He also said, if someone slapped you on your cheek, to give them the other one, meaning don't retaliate. But it wasn't just the things that Jesus said which caused Christianity to be a religion that promotes peace, but it's also that the central story of Christianity also discourages violence. I mean, just think about the central story of Christianity. Christians believe that there is a God in heaven who, instead of staying in his glory and perfection, stepped down into our messed up world to fix it. He didn't stay in his own bliss, but he came down to our broken level in the greatest act of self-sacrifice we've ever seen and celebrate every year at Christmas. Christians also believe that this God, when he became human in the person of Jesus, he did not only hang out with the high and mighty, but he welcomed all people. He welcomed people who would be outcasts, people like women and children who kind of second-class citizens in their day. He also welcomed people who would be cast out for racial reasons, for social reasons, for religious reasons. Jesus was someone that all people gathered to. He was not divisive, he was peace-bringing, he was harmonizing. And we also believe that this God, when he became a human, he came to die for his enemies. That's what Jesus believed he was doing on the cross. He was dying for the forgiveness of even those who were killing him in that moment. He prayed on the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." He's a God of forgiveness, forgiving even his enemies. And lastly, we see that this God is a God who doesn't retaliate when attacked. Jesus was beaten up, arrested. At no point did he retaliate or try to fight back. No, he instead just trusted his life in his Father's hands, trusted that at the right time God would raise him from the dead. And this is this is the God that we follow as Christians. Follow a God of forgiveness, a God of welcome, a God of self-sacrifice. And so, of course, it follows from this that if there are people who commit crimes, hatred, say horrible things in the name of Christianity, doing it for Jesus, then I don't think we have to attribute that violence to Christianity, actually. Actually, I think we have to say that what's going on here is not that these people are following Christianity, but they're not. They're people who are doing horrible things either because they are not Christians themselves, they're just putting on a label which they don't really live by, or they are Christians but are doing these horrible things because they have grossly misunderstood the teachings of Jesus. They grossly misunderstand the God that they serve, and they need to learn about him more. They need to take their faith more seriously so that they'll stop doing these things. I think that's another misconception we have of religion, is that if there's a religious person doing something horrible, then for them to stop, they need to take their religion less seriously. They need to become less extreme, to hold their beliefs more lightly, and then they'll be more peaceful. But whilst that may be the case for other religions, it's certainly not the case for Christianity. If there is a Christian who is being hateful towards others, being prejudiced towards others, even committing violent acts, saying horrible things, that Christian doesn't need to take their beliefs less seriously, but they need to take their Christianity more seriously. They need to believe more in a God of forgiveness, more in a God of welcome, more in a God of harmony and peace. That's the shocking thing about Christianity, really, is that the more extreme you believe it, the more extremely you follow Jesus, the more humble you become. It doesn't lead to division, doesn't lead to hatred and bigotry. It actually leads you to be more humble towards others, to be more forgiving, to be more eager to make peace. This is why when Martin Luther King, for example, was in the 60s campaigning for civil rights for African Americans, and he was appealing to a nation that claimed to be Christian, he didn't ask America to lay down its religion. He didn't say, set that aside so that we can sort this. No, he asked America to become more Christian. He quoted Bible passages. He talked about God's justice. He invited people to more realistically live out their Christian faith, because he knew that Christianity, when followed, actually doesn't lead to division, racism, bigotry. It leads to peace, leads to harmony. That's the truth about Christianity, that the more extremely you follow it, the more humble it makes you, the more it allows you to see your own sin, your own mess, and so accept others. Not be violent, not campaign against them, but serve them, make peace. But just before we finish this video, I wonder if there might still be some of us who are perhaps dubious about this claim that Christianity makes you a more peaceful, more loving person, because maybe we know Christians who are not that way. Maybe for some of us, you've had painful experiences with people who call themselves Christians but have hurt you, or maybe even whole churches that have done you some damage. Well, if that's you, I just want to say a few brief things. Firstly, I'm very sorry to hear that. That is a kind of grieving to hear that God's people have caused you pain in that way. But secondly, I think we have to realise that in some ways it is not surprising that Christians are not perfect and that they make mistakes. Because Christianity, of course, is not about being perfect yourself. To become a Christian, you don't need to reach some level of perfection. No, Christianity is about realizing your imperfection, about realizing that you're in a mess, that you need forgiveness, and coming to Jesus to receive forgiveness and to receive his power to change you and be at work in your life. That's who Christians are. We're all works in progress. And sadly, sometimes this progress can take a long time, and it can lead to Christians even causing harm to others as they work out who they really are. But that isn't to say that Christianity has failed. I mean, maybe you have just met Christians who were on a very early stage in their trajectory. Or maybe they were Christians who had slipped up, who had had a kind of fallback. Who knows? I don't know, but all I know is that the fact that Jesus welcomes all into his family, whether we're good or bad, whether we've got no problems or deep problems, that is going to cause some complications. That is going to mean that sometimes there are Christians who are not perfect. In fact, they mean that all Christians aren't perfect. But also the fact that Jesus welcomes all may cause complications, but it also is good news for us, because at our most honest, we know that even we have problems, we have struggles. And the fact that Jesus welcomes all means that those do not have to be a barrier, that you can come to him and know his power working in your life and his forgiveness for those things. But the second thing I'd say, if you're dubious about Christianity because of Christians that you've met, is that ultimately Christianity, it isn't about Christians, it's about Christ. At the centre of Christianity is him, not his people. And so the question you really have to answer for yourself is not what do I think of these Christians, but what do I think of this Christ? What do I make of Jesus? And I'll tell you, what I make of him is that he's a man who not just spoke about peace, not just, talked a great talk, but a man who followed through on what he said. I see in Jesus a man who practiced what he preached when it came to peace, when it came to loving people. He was someone who, as I've said, welcomed all people to come to him, even those that no one else wanted anything to do with. He was a person who, even when he was being arrested for unjust reasons, did not retaliate, but prayed for his Father to forgive them. And he's a God who, even now, is working in us, changing us to allow us to follow him, and who one day is coming to bring about a world of total peace. One day Jesus will come with nail marks in his hand to come and bring justice to this world and end all wars and bring about a reign of peace as he takes the throne. I tell you, I look at Jesus and I see someone that is captivating, someone that I want to be like, that I want to learn from. And of course, that's what Jesus invites us all into. He invites us into a relationship with him, where we get forgiven for our sin, but also we get to follow him. We get to kind of apprentice him and let him rub off on us, to let him make us more loving, make us more peaceful as we follow him and wait for him to come. And so maybe your question is, will religion make me a worse person? But I think ultimately that question's too broad. The question you have to ask yourself is, will Jesus make me a worse person? That's all Christianity is really. It's just a life of following Jesus. And so you have to ask, will he make me a worse person? And I think if you look at him, the answer you get is surely not. Jesus is the only man in history who captivates us, who seems more peaceful, more kind than anyone else, and who I want to give my life to follow, and many others have as well. And as a church, we'd love to invite you to meet him for yourself and know his power at work in your life. And so if you would like to find out more, explore more about what it means to follow Jesus, we would love to help you in that way. Maybe you just want to get in contact with us. You could email me at Simon@Ascot Life Church, or just the church in general. You could email us at care@Ascot Life Church, and some of our leaders will be in contact with you. Or what you could do is come and join us on a Sunday at 10 a.m. or 6 p.m. on Facebook or YouTube. You'd be more than welcome to join us anonymously if you want for our live stream. Or of course you can tune in next week to another Thursday Thoughts, where we'll be looking at another tough question that we can ask of Christianity. But I do hope that response has been helpful to you. Would love to carry on this conversation. If you wanted to, you can email me, as I said earlier. But if not, hope you have a great rest of your week, and looking forward to speaking to you again soon. Thanks.